Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark. 5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark, aka Derringer. Today is Sunday, May 7th, and you are listening to episode 104 of the Instant Action Podcast, the longest running Planetside 2 podcast and your weekly source for Planetside 2 news and information. As always, I'm brought to you by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com. First up this week, I'm proud to say that I finally finished a master directive in the game and can now run around in my shiny Araxium-plated engineer armor. I can certainly say it was a hell of a grind through those anti-infantry mana turret kills, and maybe I'll stitch together a video of some of my better streaks over the last few days as I rushed to 1,160 kills, but I actually feel like I've accomplished something in Planetside 2. Now, that's even though I've been a player since beta. I've been podcasting about the game since 2012, so maybe that's kind of sad that I feel like I've actually accomplished something finally. Yeah, it's taken me a while to get here, and I know directives have been out for a long time, but it just goes to show you that even a bad player like me can finally put together enough kills to finally Araxium something. And yeah, it really was those mana turret kills that were keeping me back since I had finished sticky grenades a long time ago and kills and all those other ones that engineers have so long ago. It was really just the turret kills. And I've had a few people come to me and say, oh, that's the biggest pain in the ass on the engineer directive. So good for you for finally slogging that particular thing out. Now, also, this show is my second anniversary of the Instant Action Podcast, and I can officially say, as you heard, that I am the longest running Planetside 2 podcast now. So thank you to everyone who has listened over the years and will be listening into the future itself. Now, I guess this does mean that I have to give something away, so check the show links for a little contest for some more Daybreak cash codes. I think giving 2,000 Daybreak cash to 2 lucky listeners is the only fitting thing that I can do right now. So again, check the show links. I will do the same thing that I've done in the past. I like that Gleam package that they run where, you retweet something on Twitter or you visit a page or you like something on Facebook. I like giving people multiple ways to enter the contest to have a chance at winning it. So again, I will be giving away 2,000 Daybreak cash to 2 lucky winners, so 2,000 Daybreak cash each to those winners. I will probably run the contest just for a week so that I can announce the winners on next week's show and also get their Daybreak cash over to them. So with all that excitement out of the way, what's actually in store for this week's show? Well, as it was a quiet week in Planetside 2, I want to talk about some new stuff, but also revisit some older topics that I skipped over, which I wanted to do, but in favor of obviously bigger news pieces at the time. So first, with the new stuff, I want to talk about Brian Burness's call for PTS feedback. I've got some responses to his questions. I also want to talk about Rels' recent musings on the resource system. I want to talk about region locking that came to H1Z1 and what that might mean or might not mean for Planetside 2. And finally, I want to talk about a post about non-pay-to-win ways to generate income in Planetside 2. So strap in as we hot drop into another episode of the Instant Action Podcast. So first up this week is Brian Burness's topic on PTS changes. He posted a Reddit link that says basically looking for feedback on current PTS construction changes specifically. And he wrote, "We threw a number of changes onto PTS over the past couple of weeks. Some things were heavily discussed, while others not so much. One of the topics that we saw little and or scattered feedback on is the construction changes. Considering how much of an impact these changes could potentially have on the game, we felt it's important to call them out in a focused thread." And then he has 7 or 8 specific things that he was looking for specific feedback on, and I'm going to go through them and give my thoughts on each of them so that he can listen to what I have to say. So first up was Accordion cost reduction. The amount required to pull just about every object has been reduced by approximately 2/3 of, and that does not affect certs or Daybreak cash cost to purchase, just the cost to actually pull them. I do think the Accordion cost reduction is a good thing because you're getting more stuff out there and getting bases built faster. I do think that that is a good change. Also, he did say, coupled with this one is the Accordion maintenance cost increase, and this is the passive drain of Accordion-powered objects, modules, hives, orbital strikes, etc. This has been roughly doubled, and it means that bases are going to drain quicker without Accordion taps near them. I think this, coupled with the reduction, are both good things because I would expect it not to cost a lot to build something, but then it would cost a bunch of Accordion to keep those things powered moving forward. So I am definitely in favor of both of these particular changes that he put out there. Also, the Accordion tap was the next thing. The Accordion tap greatly decreases the Accordion cost to maintain powered objects. Additionally, ants can unload Accordion at a tap, which is then transferred directly to the silo. It also has a 10,000 Accordion capacity, so it can act as additional storage when the base's silo is full. It must be placed within at least 135 meters away, but no more than 155 meters away from a silo for the efficiency buff, and the buff itself can stack 3 times. I don't have too much of an opinion about the Accordion tap. I mean, I think it's a decent enough idea because it allows more Accordion to be siphoned into these things. It means that you can set them up in areas that are a little further away from your base, so you don't have to travel all the way back to the base with your ant itself. So I think that these are certainly a good idea as well. I remember from watching the video, people were having trouble placing them properly, so I guess that's my only feedback regarding them, to make sure that you're able to place them and that there's actual proper things showing how far away from the silo itself that you are, so you can take fully advantage of the Accordion taps themselves. Next up, the Skywall Shield must be reactivated when it's disabled by enemy fire or power loss. I do think that that is a good idea. I think it just coming back on its own was not the best way to have the Sky Shield work, so the fact that you've got to actually reactivate it, I think is a great idea and a good addition. Orbital strike generators cannot target an area that is protected by a Skywall Shield. I think that's another good thing. You want the Skywall Shield to prevent things like that from happening, so I think that is a good idea too. Orbital strike generators can target within no construction areas. I think that that's another good one, and I've said in the past that I'm all for allowing orbital strikes to target any base going forward. It was in Planetside 1, and it worked fine in Planetside 1, and I think that coupling orbital strikes, being able to hit anywhere with forcing players to use the construction system just to get the orbital strike to work, I think is a great idea. I think, though, that perhaps being able to use the orbital strike would probably use the majority of the Accordion that you have in your silo if it's going to hit outside of a construction area, like in a regular base. But it would force some outfits or some players to do that in order to be able to strike anywhere on the map. So I'm hoping we'll see some additional changes to the orbital strike generators based on the other changes that we've seen to the construction in this most recent PTS patch. Speaking of the the orbital strike, the minimum range has decreased from 200 to 150 meters. I really do not have an opinion regarding that. And finally, the glaive was buffed, and direct damage was increased to 1,250 from 750, and indirect damage radius was increased to 15 from 10. I think that this is fine as well. I haven't seen many glaives being used now that orbital strikes are in the game, so maybe increasing the damage of the glaive itself will push more people to use them over orbital strikes themselves. So I will include a link to Brian Burness's post in this week's show notes. He's obviously still looking for feedback, so if you are a player who does a lot of construction stuff and has played with the new stuff on PTS and wants to give him any additional feedback, I know that he will be greatly appreciative of that information. I've always said it that I'm not a fan of construction, but I am a fan of orbital strikes. So if the two go hand in hand well, I would actually do construction. So maybe I'm not the best person to actually talk about all the construction stuff. So that's why I really hope if you're a listener of mine and you do have other things to provide to Brian regarding this, you should go on to Reddit and put your comments down so that he can read them and respond to them, and we can get construction moving towards a better way than it is currently. So that would be the first topic I want to cover this week. So let's move on to Rel's thoughts on the resource system. All right, so this was a snippet of a streaming session that Rel had done this past week that had been posted to Reddit, and it was a lot of his talk about the resource system and vehicles in general. And the things that he's kind of... I'll include a link so you guys can go check this out yourself. And it was only a 9-minute long snippet of his Twitch stream. I recommend you at least go and watch it. And then if you feel like interacting with him or the other people in the Reddit post, you can certainly go from there. But basically what Rel thinks the resource system and vehicle play should be. And let me just say that I think that this is all a personal opinion of his, and this is not necessarily where the game is headed. But obviously, if this is his personal opinion, then it could certainly color his thoughts or the direction that he's going when they actually do make some of these changes to combined arms and things like that. So first, he is really in favor of a battlefield style of vehicle spawning, and that means, maybe 5 main battle tanks are available at a particular base. Once they're gone, they're gone. You would, after a while, they would respawn there based on resources if it's connected to your warp gate via a lattice, or maybe you could bring an ant and actually refill a silo that is at that base and increase the spawn time, things like that. I'm not sure how I feel. Well, I am sure how I feel. I do not like that. That is strictly or straightforward a battlefield type of vehicle spawning, and he even mentioned Battlefield in the snippet himself. I play Planetside 2 because of its massive battleness, not a word, but I'll coin it myself, and because at any time anybody, if they have enough nanites, they can go and spawn any vehicle that they want at any base and bring it as a force multiplier to anywhere they want to go on the map. I like that about Planetside 2. I like if I have the resources that I can spawn it. And I'm afraid that moving towards this style of vehicle spawning, it's a matter of who can click fast enough to get to it. It's just like playing Battlefield. Sometimes the shittiest tank players ever get in a tank and it's blown up 3 seconds later. Whereas I could hop inside a Panzer and I can go crazy in a tank in Battlefield 1942 and get more kills than I've ever gotten before because I feel like I'm a better vehicle player than that person is. And I would hate to see Planetside 2 degrade into that type of playstyle where, a BR-15 brand new player can grab the vehicle, not have it sorted out whatsoever, and beat me to it, and therefore take the last tank and leave someone like me who has everything unlocked on my Vanguards and Mag Riders and Prowlers, including full top weapons and everything that you could want on them. I would be left out in the cold, sitting there waiting for resources to tick in from my warp gate before a new one spawns on it. I just don't think that is Planetside 2 in a sense, and I think that would be bad for the game itself. Now, the next thing he says, he feels that vehicle timers are a bad idea because they inconvenience the individuals without solving the issues of mass pulls themselves. I'm a fan of vehicle timers more than him, clearly, because I think putting a timer on it is not a bad idea. It means that if you do something stupid with your tank and it gets blown up, you've got to wait a little while before you can get a new one. I don't have a problem with vehicle timers, but clearly I'm on the opposite side of this from Rel. Finally, he felt that restricting vehicle spawns per base would also inconvenience the individual. The one would have to redeploy back to pull a desired vehicle, but it would also serve a purpose to create supply lines and to some extent mitigate the issue of vehicle blobs, large groups of them. Determined players would still be able to pull their vehicles, but it would take a bit more effort. And this really means that if you can't get the tank at the base that's right next to where you're fighting, that further down the chain, you could pull it at a different base. And that is going to make up for there being a vehicle timer because there's going to be some time for you getting from point A to point B in that particular vehicle. So I can kind of understand where he's coming from with the first 2 points by having that third point, making anybody able to get that vehicle, but it's obviously going to be much further back. And I'm also assuming, even though it wasn't mentioned, that there'd be absolutely no restriction from pulling any vehicle you want from the warp gate because it's at the warp gate. But obviously you have a much larger area to move through to get your vehicle from point A to point B. If we had something like the Lodestar in-game, and for those that don't know, the Lodestar was in Planetside 1. It was basically just a big flying box, but you could open a gate and load a main battle tank into it and fly it to anywhere you want on the battlefield and drop it onto the battlefield. If we had something like that in Planetside 2, then certainly restricting vehicle spawns or having a battlefield-style vehicle spawning wouldn't be as bad, but we don't have that in Planetside 2. So, unfortunately, I don't think that I really agree with too much of Rel's thoughts on the resource system when it comes to vehicle spawning. Now, he did reply to this post itself, and I want to take a moment and actually read what he wrote. And he wrote that the intention would be to have vehicles on bases regenerate slowly over time and accelerate that regeneration the closer these bases are to the faction's warp gate. Ants are able to accelerate that regeneration with deliveries so that the more strategy-minded outfits have something to take advantage of. What realistically ends up happening is that armor zerging goes away as supply lines get more constrained as a faction pushes down the lattice, and losing a vehicle is more consequential. I would be interested to hear feedback regarding what I personally consider the core problem of the resource system, and that is being on the individual instead of on the territory. That's where the discussion should be, in my opinion. So, like I said, I can understand where his mind is on this particular thing. I just don't know that I I shouldn't say that I completely agree. I don't agree with it at all, because I like the system that it is right now, being able to pull any vehicle I want from various bases without some sort of restriction on the number that spawn there. I think restricting the number of tanks, and I keep using tanks, but this could be anything, restricting the number of tanks that you're able to pull at a base really could hurt the game itself. And I mean, just think that, let's say, only 3 Sunderers spawn at that base, And we all know right now that getting Sunderers for attackers specifically, getting Sunderers to multiple positions in a base that you're attacking is very important to continue the attack on that base. And I think doing something like this is going to hurt that type of gameplay and hurt attackers more than anything else. So I guess I don't like this idea. And if this is where the combined arms stuff might be going down in the future, I think I will be disappointed with that. So I'm hoping that Rel kind of rethinks this and maybe has a different idea on it. Granted, I'm just one voice in the whole thing. Again, I'm going to include a link so you guys can go watch the video and get your opinion of this as well, and post feedback to it as well. Otherwise, we might see something like this in the game. All right, third topic this week, I want to talk about region locking, which was recently introduced to H1Z1. And yes, I know H1Z1 and Planetside 2 are completely different games. I have obviously played both of them. I have access to H1Z1 because I am a member of Planetside 2. And I have played a few games of H1Z1. H1Z1 is not my cup of tea, though. I don't know, I'm just not into that. I mean, I'm into zombies. I like the zombie theme, so I really don't have a problem with that. In fact, I recently purchased a board game called Zombicide. I don't know if any of you have heard of this, but it's basically a tabletop miniature game where you're a survivor trying to fight your way out of zombie hordes that are attacking you, and there's all these scenarios that are made, and there's a whole bunch of miniatures that come with the game, and I picked that up recently, and I'm able to play that solo, and I've been playing that by myself on my kitchen table until I can get some of my friends over to play it with me. So I'm a fan of the zombie theme, so when I say I don't like H1Z1, it's because I don't like the style of game itself, not that I don't like the theme of zombies or something along those lines. In fact, I like the people developing H1Z1. Many of them are ex-Planetside 2 developers. I mean, Clegg is a prime example of someone working on H1Z1, and I like the stuff that Clegg does. So I like H1Z1 in that aspect. I just don't like the game itself, just because it's not my style of game. But recently in H1Z1, they announced, and I quote, region locking is now on and is being enforced at 150 milliseconds. If your connection to a data center other than your default home region is higher than that, then you will notice that the selection is locked and you will be unable to play on that server. This is being done for the fairness and integrity of all games to ensure a consistent and predictable experience. End quote. Now, what does this mean in English terms? It means that if you are on a server that is not your home default region, and your ping to that server is too high, you will not be able to play on that server. And what that means is no getting killed from around walls or because somebody is super laggy and you have to deal with that. Now, would this be something amazing for Planetside 2? For a lot of players, they say it would be amazing for this to come to Planetside 2, especially all those people complaining on a server like Connery, where they feel like U.S. players have to deal with Chinese players there, on Emerald, where U.S. players have to play with Brazilian players there who they say have horrible pings, or Briggs, which I know a lot of people playing on Briggs, their pings may not be the best. I think that it would be interesting to see something like that in Planetside 2, but I can honestly report that we will not see this coming to Planetside 2 anytime soon. And even so, Radar X said, this is not as simple as it sounds. It's also apples and oranges. When you die in Planetside 2 to someone with high ping, you respawn annoyed, but you're still playing the game. In H1Z1, when you die, you are done with that particular match. And I can certainly understand what Radar X is saying, because that is certainly true. Where in H1Z1, you're out. and you've got to wait until the next match starts. And this is talking about the King of the Kill version of H1Z1. So as much as some people would be excited to see something like this come to Planetside 2, it's never going to come to Planetside 2 because it would hurt the player base too much, unfortunately. And I agree with what Raider X says. It is easy for that to happen to you in Planetside 2, but yes, you just respawn, and the only thing that really suffers is your kill-death ratio for your current play session. It's not like you are out of a match and you can't play Planetside 2 anymore. So even though I think a lot of people would love to see region locking come to Planetside 2, it's not something that we're going to see. So don't get your hopes up about it. All right, last topic I want to talk about before I get to a little housekeeping, because I did get a voicemail as well as a text message I want to talk about this week. But topic number 4 is non-pay-to-win ways to generate income in Planetside 2. And I thought this was an interesting post that White Forest had put up, and I think it spurned some interesting discussion. I'll include a link to it on this week's show notes. I know it's an older post, but something I wanted to talk about nonetheless, because I do think that some non-pay-to-win ways of generating income in Planetside 2 that the devs could implement are not a bad thing, and I would like to spurn more discussion on this particular topic. So some of the things that White Forest suggested were maybe adding some new directives for black weapons and platinum guns, and giving some good rewards for completing those directives, because that would really push people to get out there and buy some of those black and platinum guns. I mean, as it stands right now, the only people buying black and platinum guns are people who want to show off that they own that particular gun. There's no reward for actually purchasing those guns at this point in the game. So simply adding new directives for those is something that I don't think would be too difficult for the developers of Planetside 2, and could push some, directive whores over to doing some black and platinum guns. He also suggested perhaps some better weapon quality, and this would be any weapons that you actually pay for to give them slightly better stats than what a non-paid-for weapon is. And this is really pushing the black and platinum guns again. Maybe giving them slightly faster, or slightly less recoil, something that wouldn't be super game-changing, but still would be slightly better, because you really don't want to push towards pay-to-win, and clearly getting better quality and better stats is sort of pay-to-win, but if it's such a minuscule change, you would get those players who feel like they have to go out and purchase these to one-up their opponents, but will it matter all that much day-to-day play? Who knows? Next, he suggested some more seasonal weapons. We've kind of been stagnant in the seasonal weapons that we've seen. We get the same candy corn cannon every October. We get a 4th of July cannon and a 4th of July. It would be nice to see some more seasonal weapons created and pushed out into the game, because obviously we know people run out and buy those like crazy. And the final thing that he suggested would be loot crates. And this is something that obviously a game like Overwatch does very well. H1Z1 has crates that you can open also. And since it's something that's in H1Z1, I think that they could port it over to Planetside 2. And obviously, if you were to purchase a loot crate with Daybreak Cash, you could get things like certs, or ISO 4, or implants, or boosts, or maximum resource boosts, maybe seasonal weapons, maybe a chance at a black, a gold, or a platinum weapon, or even some cosmetics. It would certainly have to be a random chance to it, but I think bringing a loot crate type style into Planetside 2 would get some people quickly to purchase them. Maybe you wouldn't get a ton of people doing it, but I think that some people definitely would consider purchasing loot crates in the game. I know if the crates themselves were like 250 Daybreak cash or something like that, if I got my monthly allocation of 500, I might buy a pair of loot crates or at least one loot crate each month to see what I got out of it. And, if I got something really cool out of it, maybe I'd buy another one. I think loot crates are not a bad idea. And I'm interested to see if that's something potentially they could push into Planetside 2. Again, I know this was an older post, but something I definitely wanted to talk about because I'm interested in ways to generate more income from Planetside 2, the game that I love. So, again, head on over to this and leave your suggestions in it as well. I know the developers are definitely reading things like this. And with that, let's move on to housekeeping this week.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Come back later, please.
Housekeeping.
Not now.
Housekeeping.
Go away.
I coming anyway?
First up in housekeeping, I received some odd text messages to my Google Voice account. And the first one I got said, "We are having a party for Emma Saturday. Please let me know if you're going to come so we can send you the location and time. We would love it if you came." Unfortunately, I have no idea who Emma is or who sent this to me. Clearly, it was a wrong number text, but certainly hilarious nonetheless. I say send me more wrong number texts. These are absolutely amazing. But in addition to that, I did get a voicemail from someone who says they are Sub-Zero Killa 1469875, and let's listen to that right now.
Hey, Mark. It's Sub-Zero Killa 1469875, but you probably don't remember me. Well, I remember you. Remember that fight in the mountains of Eastern Amarish 15 months ago? You little bitch hacker? Yeah, that's right. I know you little cheaters game. I have that session where you killed me on Shadowplay, and I've spent the last 14 months analyzing it, and the last 30 days tracking you down. You think I'm lying? I'll have you know I graduated top of my class on Coltier, and I've been involved in numerous secret raids on Albanu. And I have over 300 kills. Assists. I am trained in infantry side, and I am the top sniper in the entire Brick server. Currently working my way up through Connery next. You are nothing to me but just another target. I will wipe you the fuck out with precision, the likes of which has never been seen before on Araxis. Mark my fucking words. Mark. You think you can get away with doing your podcast and posting it on Reddit? Think again, fucker. I downvote every post with my 5 accounts. As we speak, I am contacting my secret network of spies across Lizard Squad, and your IP is being traced right now. So you better prepare for the storm, maggot. The storm that wipes out the pathetic little thing you call your life. You're fucking dead, kid. I can be anywhere, anytime, and I can kill you in over 700 ways. And that's just with our bare hands. Not only am I extensively trained...
Too much. He's afraid of you. He's afraid of you.
Mom, I'm talking to a friend. Mom, no, just put the dinner on the dresser. Mom, stop.
Do you want to be in air or...
Not only am I extensively trained in unarmed combat, but I have access to the entire arsenal of Planetside 2 Depot, and I will use it to its full extent to wipe your miserable ass off the face of the 4 continents, you little shit. If only you could have known what unholy retribution your little clever podcast was about to bring down upon you, maybe you would have held your fucking tongue. But you couldn't. You didn't. And now you're paying the price, you goddamn idiot. I will shit fury all over you, and you will drown in it. You're fucking dead, kiddo. 300 confirmed kill assists, don't forget. Also, I started an outfit on Emerald recently. If you want to join, it's called Silent Assassins 47. You can send your application to me. Okay, thanks. Bye.
I have to say, Sub-Zero Killa 1469875, that I haven't laughed that hard in the longest time. That was an excellent voicemail. Kudos to you, sir. I'm going to search out your outfit and see if I can join you. Absolutely hilarious. I want more voicemails like that. I was laughing when I received that. And awesome job. Please send more like that. I love it. So that is going to be it for this week's show, second anniversary, second birthday, however you want to call it, episode 104. But how can you get in touch with me or the show? Well, first off, visit my website, www.instantactionpodcast.com. Send me an email at instantactionshow@gmail.com. Leave me a voicemail like Sub-Zero Killa 1469875 did. It's 347-486-4772. That's 347-4VM4PS2. The show's Twitter account is at InstActPodcast, and as always, my personal Twitter is at The Derringer. So in closing, if you've enjoyed this show, please leave me a review on your podcast listening avenue of choice, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else. Also, feel free to tell your friends and outfit mates about the show. And finally, thanks for listening, and keep spamming that Join Combat, formerly known as Instant Action button.